The crunch of pine needles under tires has a strange comfort when you've left everything behind. My daughter, Emma, was asleep in the passenger seat, clutching her stuffed fox by the tail as our battered SUV wound through the mountain curve into Cedar Hollow. I glanced at the weathered wooden sign swinging from a rusted chain. Welcome to Cedar Hollow Heights. It looked like it hadn't been touched since the Clinton administration. Good. That meant less HOA nonsense, or so I thought. 2 trucks trailed Usown packed with our furniture, the other hauling servers, monitors, and the guts of my security systems. I'd built a career designing intrusion detection software, and after everything we'd been through, this move was our reset. Fresh air, isolation, no prying neighbors, a clean slate for Emma and me. We passed a tall metal gate with a keypad, the entrance to the gated part of the community. My property sat just beyond, nestled against the rocky hillside, technically outside the HOA's grasp due to a quirk in land designations, a remnant of an old ranch parcel that hadn't been swallowed by the luxury cabin craze. The house stood at the crest, charcoal gray with cedar trim, framed by pines and aspens. Remote, defensible, create a perfect mix of warmth and vigilance. As I parked, the movers started unloading, chatting loudly in Spanish. I gave them the code for the storage module and began directing them room by room. Emma helped for a bit, tugging boxes labeled kitchen stuff or moms before a squirrel on the deck railing stole her attention. Then I heard tires crunching, slow and deliberate. A sleek silver Range Rover pulled up just shy of my gravel drive. 3 people stepped out. A stiff-looking man in chinos, a woman with sunglasses large enough to block a satellite signal, and the ringleader, Deborah Caldwell, in a navy blazer and a scowl like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "You can't unload here," she declared, marching toward me like she owned the dirt under my boots. "Excuse me," I said, brushing off my hands. "You're not in our records," she snapped. "This road is HOA maintained. You don't have clearance." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm Lauren Brooks. I just bought this house." I grabbed a folder from the front seat, deed, title, survey, all stamped and sealed. "It's not part of your HOA. Independent parcel." Deborah didn't glance at the papers. She snatched one, crumpled it, and tossed it to the ground. "That land hasn't been occupied in years," she said. "It's not zoned for residency. We've had issues with squatters." I gave a short, dry laugh. "I paid $430,000 at auction. Bank certified, county registered. You want to argue with Douglas County?" Her companions shifted uncomfortably. Deborah didn't blink. "You can't stay here without our approval," she said. "That's how we maintain community standards." Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone and spoke loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Yes, 911. I need to report a trespasser, possibly armed, moved into a vacant property. Yes, with a child." I froze, not out of fear, but because Emma had stepped into view, holding a juice box, blinking at the tension. I moved in front of her as the movers paused. Deborah smiled, smug and satisfied. I didn't yell or curse. I dialed my lawyer, told him to stay ready, then looked Deborah in the eyes. "You're going to regret that call." The cruiser arrived fast, lights flashing, but sirens off. The officer who stepped out had a cautious stance, hand on his belt, eyes scanning. I stood still, arms at my sides, Emma clinging to my leg. "Sir," he said, voice even, "step away from the child." I complied slowly. "She's my daughter." Deborah pounced. "That woman broke into the Callahan property. It's been abandoned for years. She showed up with trucks, probably stripping the place or hiding something." The officer turned to me. "Name?" "Lauren Brooks. I own this house. Bought it legally 6 weeks ago. County records are updated. I've got documents if you'd like." He nodded. I handed him the folder, deed, title, zoning survey, notarized affidavit, and my attorney's card. He stepped back to his cruiser, radioed something, then flipped through the pages. Deborah stood nearby, arms crossed, lips pursed in triumph, like she was waiting for my eviction notice. A second cruiser arrived. A sergeant, older and gruffer, stepped out, clearly no stranger to HOA drama. He greeted the first officer, then approached me. "You Lauren Brooks?" "Yes, sir. You say you bought this place recently?" I nodded. "Auction, bank owned. Not within HOA jurisdiction. It's in the county parcel maps." He examined the survey, then a printed email from the county assessor's office I'd included for backup. He read in silence, then turned to Deborah. Ma'am, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this woman's documentation is airtight. The property's hers, legally. You made a false 911 report. Deborah's smugness cracked. That can't be right. That parcel I have a map. You reported a break-in with a child on site. The sergeant interrupted. That's serious misuse of emergency resources. You can be charged for that. I didn't know, she stammered, backpedaling. The HOA doesn't have her in our system. Because she's not part of your system, he said. This property isn't covered by Cedar Hollow Heights. Never has been. Behind her, the man in chinos slunk toward the Range Rover. The woman with sunglasses removed them, muttering about emails. Deborah wasn't done. That gravel stretch is HOA funded. She can't use our infrastructure if she's not a member. I smiled. I'd been waiting for this. That strip is county-owned, I said, pulling another sheet. It's a public easement for service access and emergencies. Your HOA just pays for snow plowing because you volunteered. It's not private. The sergeant checked the document, sighed, and turned to Deborah. I'd recommend you walk away before this gets worse. Deborah didn't respond. She turned, stiff-backed, and marched to her vehicle. As she drove off, the sergeant gave me a long look. You came prepared. Learned a long time ago, I said, watching Emma sip her juice like nothing happened. Always treat neighbor disputes like legal trials waiting to happen. He smirked, handed back my folder, and left. The cruisers rolled away, and the movers looked at me like I'd just disarmed a bomb. I nodded. Let's finish unloading. And someone get my daughter another juice. She earned it. I figured Deborah would back off, lick her wounds, and find someone else to harass. I underestimated her. What she lacked in legal power, she made up for with petty tyranny and small-town paranoia. It started with silence, the kind that feels deliberate. Neighbors who'd nodded politely on move-in day now avoided eye contact. The teenager who'd helped with yard work suddenly wasn't allowed over. I knew a smear campaign when I saw one. Deborah wasn't aiming to win legally. She was playing the long game: undermine, isolate, wear me down. 3 days later, the first real hit came. I wheeled our garbage bin out, only to find it gone the next morning. Emma laughed. Maybe it ran away. The sanitation department claimed it was picked up for contamination, despite my double-bagged, city-approved liners. They said a new bin would take 10 business days. That evening, the movers texted to cancel a follow-up delivery. Sorry, we're not allowed past the gate without an HOA permit. Something about fines. I nearly smashed my phone. The next day, I picked Emma up from school and found her waiting with a security guard. A woman came by, said your custody was in question, he said, uneasy. Claimed a safety concern. Emma hugged me tightly that night. I told her it was a mistake, but didn't sleep. I spent the morning installing a perimeter camera system, motion detection, thermal sensors, license plate logging. If someone sneezed near my driveway, I'd know. Then I called my lawyer. This is HOA warfare, I said. By Thursday, a motion sensor tripped at 2:13 a.m. Behind the shed. Playback showed a scruffy man, early 30s, tossing a trash bag over the fence. I couldn't get his face, but his hoodie read Caldwell Construction. Subtle. I started a digital log timestamps, video stills, court-ready evidence. It wasn't the act that rattled me. It was the deliberation. Deborah was trying to provoke a mistake. Friday, the school called again. An anonymous email claimed I wasn't Emma's mother, possibly using a fake identity, reported to Child Protective Services. Something cracked inside, minute just anger, but a cold, focused rage. You don't come after a woman's kid unless you're ready for a courtroom or a cell. I visited Jack Turner, a retired paramedic 3 doors down, who always waved. He opened the door and said, "Wondered when you'd show up." Over coffee, he confirmed Deborah had circulated a letter claiming I'd bought the house through loopholes, had shady business ties, even suggested I was ex-military with PTSD. You believe any of it? I asked. Jack shook his head. I've seen dangerous. You just want to raise your girl. I left with a signed witness statement and the sense I wasn't entirely alone, just mostly. That night, I reviewed footage. 3 more trash drops, 2 vehicles circling, teenagers skateboarding on my lot, scattering when lights hit. I sat in my office, monitors glowing, listening to Emma snore softly. I didn't feel defeated. I felt like a general in a bunker, stockpiling ammo. They wanted pressure? I'd give them pressure, calculated and legal. The game had changed, and I was done playing defense. I didn't want war, I wanted peace. But when someone threatens your kid and sabotages your life like it's a hobby, you stop wishing and start building your offense. First, I called Susan Hayes, a real estate attorney and ex-prosecutor with a reputation for shredding liars. I sent her everything: videos, fake reports, the missing bin, the Caldwell construction hoodie. She called back. "Lauren, we're going to bury them." Second, I hired a forensic HOA auditor, Carl Thompson, who looked like he'd sue his own dog over a spreadsheet error. He'd investigated financial abuse in condo boards before going freelance. I sent him the HOA's public records, minutes, and disclosures, telling him to dig deep. By week's end, I had 2 folders: legal action and internal malfeasance. Carl found maintenance reimbursements matching Deborah's luxury car washes, HOA funds paying for her home's landscaping, and a fake easement review invoice from a non-existent contractor. Susan drafted 3 filings: defamation, civil harassment, and a complaint for the false 911 call, which carried criminal weight. I emailed a professional summary of my findings to every Cedar Hollow resident: facts, citations, no opinions. I offered a confidential channel for testimony on HOA misconduct. By Monday, I had 5 replies, 3 anonymous, 2 named, including Jax, who wrote, "They're scared of her, but they hate her more." One email stood out from Pineview 22, who we later learned was Rachel Nguyen, the HOA treasurer. She had proof Deborah altered a zoning diagram to include my parcel, attaching a forged HOA memo. I compared it to the public file. Me parcel was falsely highlighted as HOA controlled, with a fake amendment vote. It was a smoking gun. I sent it to Susan and Carl. Susan laughed. "That's felony-level document fraud. She could lose her freedom." I didn't celebrate. Deborah wouldn't fold, double down. At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed with Susan's one-word message: approved. We had a warrant. Susan had submitted an affidavit with forged documents, falsified maps, and resident statements, one admitting under oath that Deborah offered financial appreciation to back her claim. Rachel provided screen recordings of Deborah editing maps on outdated software, complete with metadata and IP addresses. It was damning. The sheriff's office moved on Deborah's house and the HOA office in the community hall, which she treated like a war room. I watched from my deck as sheriff SUVs rolled through the gate, parking by the HOA's tennis court. Residents filmed, gossip brewing. Carl assisted deputies, targeting unreported transactions, fake maintenance claims, and forged map communications. They found spa invoices disguised as HOA expenses, personal grocery bills, and a backyard waterfall charge. A manila folder labeled outside actors held annotated Facebook threads with my name marked "must isolate," and a spreadsheet ranking HOA members, vendors, and school faculty by loyalty, some flagged for cooperation offsets via HOA funds. One resident, Clara Evans, came forward. Deborah had offered to pay for her roof repair if she claimed I made her feel unsafe. Clara refused, and Deborah called it disappointing. By evening, Deborah's house was dark, her SUV gone. Rumors said she was lawyering up or hiding in Vail. An HOA email announced her administrative leave. The sheriffs had audio from a Zoom call where she discussed nipping this in the bud and bribing Jack with tax help. She was done. Courtrooms smell like old paper and recycled air, sterile, but not like hospitals, more like where truth gets documented. I sat beside Susan, calm and composed. Deborah sat across, jaw tight, flanked by lawyers who billed by the breath. She wore pearls, bold lipstick, and that navy blazer, but her eyes betrayed her. She'd seen the discovery files. Susan opened surgically. My property's legal purchase, verified zoning, intimidation attempts, forged documents, contractor pressure, sabotage, all backed by evidence. Then the spreadsheet and Zoom audio. Deborah's voice planning to flip Jack with pension paperwork help. Her lawyer's out-of-context objection was shot down by the judge. It's her voice manipulating a witness. Context is clear. I testified plainly. The 911 call, missing bin, school intimidation, camera logs. Susan asked why I didn't just move. I looked at Jack, Clara, the silent HOA members. It stopped being about me, I said. Deborah abused her position, misused funds, threatened families, and rewrote rules when facts didn't fit. I didn't want to be the next one who let it happen. No cross-examination. Jack detailed Deborah's offer for roof funds to undermine me. Clara, shaky but firm, recounted the roof repair bribe. Rachel presented the falsified zoning map. The judge recessed for 15 minutes, then ruled without sitting. MS. Caldwell, your actions constitute gross misconduct, fraud, defamation, and harassment. You're removed from your position immediately. He ordered a full HOA audit and awarded me $92,000 plus legal fees, with potential punitive damages pending criminal investigation. Deborah glanced at the door, but deputies were already moving. They read her charges: falsifying records, harassment, fund misappropriation, false police report. She left silently, heels echoing. Jack clapped once, a sharp sound in the quiet room. The mountains grew quiet, a warm, living quiet wind through pines, birdsong drifting. I sat on the deck with a cold drink, Emma chasing bubbles barefoot, hair wild. Neighbors arrived, Jack with ribs, Clara with lemonade, Rachel with a store-bought cake she claimed was homemade. Carl showed, awkward in jeans. Susan arrived late with beer and a grin. We ate, drank, laughed to a chaotic playlist of country and synth pop. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone spilled beer and apologized. It didn't matter. Jack raised a glass to the woman who reminded us property lines mean something, especially when someone forgets how to be human. Cheers followed. At dusk, Emma climbed into my lap, yawning. Is she gone forever? Pretty much, I said. She's managing court dates now. Good, Emma said. I like it better this way. I kissed her head, and we watched the last bubble float skyward, weightless, fragile, and finally free.